This one, all about food and how we still practice our indigenous cultures and practices to this day, whether we know it or not. It's innate. Walk with me to the end. We gonna cover seafood. We gonna cover gumbo. We gonna cover barbecue. We gonna cover cornbread. We gonna cover some more shit. All gems though. Now let's start with one of my favorites, seafood boils. We know this is a staple within our community, definitely in the South and on the East Coast. You feel me? But I know all of us do this, right? Now we know all these immigrants come within our community and sell us this same thing. They sell us our cultures, no matter what it is. If we talking about food, anything, we have immigrants who come in and package what we sell and sell it back to us. But this is not about that. Let's stick on topic. Now it says some Southeastern American Indian tribes cook seafood using methods similar to modern seafood boils. These methods involve boiling crabs, shrimp, and other shellfish with foraged herbs and roots in large clay pots. Similarities to modern seafood boils. Boiling seafood, shellfish such as crabs and shrimp were boiled as a cooking method, incorporating other ingredients. Seafood was combined with corn and other vegetables. We still do this to this day. Communal aspect. These meals are often communal, bringing families and tribes together, which we still practice to this day. Here it says key differences from modern seafood. Spices. While traditional cooking used foraged herbs and roots, the addition of Cajun or Old Bay seasoning blends occurred later, influenced by European and African cultures, which is cap. As far as in the African cultures aspect, now I can attest to some European things, which I'm going to touch on shortly. Right now, with the Cajun or Old Bay, these things are made with chili peppers and things of that nature. Right, this is peppers that's already indigenous to the Americas, that actually are the grandmother peppers and influence other cooking methods around the world. And I touched on that in a couple previous videos. Now, the European aspect would be onion and garlic, being that is two crops that's indigenous to Europe. Now, they're saying the sausage and potatoes, etc. The inclusion of sausage and potatoes in seafood boils became more prevalent with the arrival of European settlers and the evolution of the Southern cuisine. But I gotta push back on that because potatoes are indigenous to the Americas. And then it goes on to say the core concept of boiling seafood with other ingredients existed in Southern Eastern American Indian culinary traditions. This practice contributed to the development of modern seafood boil. Right? Now let's go back up to the sausage and potatoes. Now I can say with the sausage because the Spaniards brought in the pigs, which we create sausage from. But that don't mean they taught us how to cook it or anything, because we actually had to hunt these hogs and everything they brought over here as American Indians because they was destroying our crops. So to adapt to what's going on with the invasion of these Europeans coming in, we not only hunting them for food, we hunting them to keep our crops alive, basically. With seafood, I forgot to add clam bakes, but as you can see here, pre-contact North American Northeast culture. Steaming clams in a fire pit dug on the beach is considered a New England tradition. Although the clam bake has become to symbolize the New England regional cuisine, few people know that it was an American Indian invention. At first, European settlers on the East Coast were resistant to the idea of eating clams, believing that the seafood that was a regular part of the American Indians' diet was poisonous. Indians taught colonists to dig a pit, line it with flat stones, and build a fire on it. When the rocks were white hot, the embers were brushed away and layers of seaweed were placed on the stone. They placed alternate layers of clams and corn and more seaweed on top of this. Then they covered it with a blanket or a hide and allowed it to cook from the heat of the rocks for about an hour. After the clam and corn were finished cooking, the Indians removed the blanket or hide. Once the colonists had tried this traditional Indian cuisine, they took it over as their own. Don't that sound familiar? We, as the original cultivators of the world, the ones who first practiced agriculture and who crops feeds the world to this day, didn't need no help in cooking or how to cook. We still practice our shit to this day, right? Now let me show y'all a couple things. Show y'all a couple spices just so they say that we got them from somewhere else, which is cap, because the place that they say we got it from, which is Africa, we gave them their crops. Actually, 90% of the crops in Africa is indigenous to the Americas. But allspice is one of the crops or spices that we originally cultivated or used or created. And not only for food, we did it for medicinal purposes as well. And we also influenced curry, if y'all didn't know that. Sweet or bell peppers, which I use in a lot of dishes, right? I'm pretty sure all of us do, are indigenous to the Americas. Just like chilies, as you can see in the first line, sweet peppers like chilies are indigenous to the tropical areas of the Americas. They belong to the capsicum family, but lack the gene that produces capsicum, the substance that causes the hot taste in chili peppers, right? Paprika wouldn't exist without us and our crops. Now at the top, you can see that says chile. After salt, the chile pepper, which is indigenous to the Americas, has become the most frequently used seasoning worldwide, right? So we didn't need no influences on how to spice up our food. We've been doing that since the inception of us making and creating and cultivating. Read the second paragraph real quick. It says between 2200 and 500 BC, they began to cultivate sunflowers and manioc. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but that's cassava. So that's showing that cassava is indigenous to the Americas, not Africa. And they began to grow lima beans, squash, and tobacco and cotton between 1500 BC and 999 BC. Right, by 1000 BC, Mesoamerican Indians have become full-time farmers. Between 900 BC and 700 AD, they became experts at irrigation. Africa still don't got that shit to this day. A lot of countries, they just start getting that. And added running beans, tomatoes, peanuts, and guava to their produce. At that time, they also started cotton weaving, turkey breeding, and salt production. Let's keep walking. Potatoes are tuber-producing crop indigenous to the Americas. Tubers are swollen ends of the underground stems. Potato plants belong to the Solanaceae family, to which tobacco, tomatoes, and chilies also belong. All crops that are indigenous to the Americas, showing that also potatoes are indigenous to the Americas. And that's not the only kind. We got Jamaica and all these other type of potato or root plant shit that we eat, crops. And without potatoes, you wouldn't have potato chips, right? That's some of my favorite snacks to have to this day. Let's read this right quick. Potato chips. Potato chips are thinly sliced potatoes that have been deeply fried in oil until they are crisp. Although American Indians had cultivated potatoes for thousands of years, the potato chip is a modern invention devised by George Crumb, a Mohawk cook at an elegant resort in Saratoga Springs, New York. During the summer of 1853, wealthy railroad baron Cornelius Vanderbilt, a diner at Moon Lake Lodge, sent a plate of French fries back to the kitchen, complaining that they were too thick. Chef Crumb made another order, this time slicing the potatoes thinner. That too was rejected. Angry Crumb decided to shave the potatoes into paper-thin slices with a peeler so they would be too crisp to eat with a fork once they were fried. Vanderbilt and his friends were delighted with Crumb's culinary invention, and soon other diners wanted to sample the chips. Before long, Saratoga chips were not only part of the Moon Lake Lodge menu, they were being packaged and sold throughout New England. Crumb opened his own restaurant that featured his gourmet treat. In the 1920s, the invention of automated potato peeler and the waxed paper bag allowed mass production and distribution. By 1990, snackers all throughout the world were eating 1.5 billion pounds of potato chips each year. As of 1999, about 8% of the potatoes grown in the United States are made into chips. And this is George Crump. Remember they said he was a Mohawk Indian, right? Come on, man. Let's keep walking though. Let's talk about that gumbo. Filet gumbo, pre-contact, North American Southeast cultures, which is the same people who practice it today. Filet gumbo is a dish flavored and thickened with dry ground leaves from the sassafras tree, which are called filet. The Choctaw or Chata, a tribe that lived in what is now Mississippi and Alabama, introduced filet gumbo to the southern settlers. The dish made from vegetables cooked in a seafood stock to which the filet powder is added after about 2 hours. Shrimp and crab may then be added and the stew is served over rice. Filet gumbo has become a famous part of Cajun cuisine. But the only people that I know that know how to cook gumbo right is the same people that been cooking it forever. And people from Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. Real engines. Now, this guy behind me is Stanley Tookie Williams, and he's one of the co-founders of the Crips. And he's originally from Louisiana. Check out what he had to say about his grandmother. Let's start from where it says, my grandmother, Mama, simply patched me up with some beech nut chewing tobacco, a trusted home remedy, and I was good as new. My stickball days were over. Now, it's important for y'all to know that tobacco is indigenous to the Americas, right? And that is a indigenous remedy that we still use today. Now, let's get down to this part. I'm going to read from a previous page, but y'all going to catch it. It says, if you recall the Beverly Hillbillies and the woman called Granny, you will have a pretty good notion about Mama's stature and style of dress. A beautiful Cherokee Indian. Let me say that part over. A beautiful Cherokee Indian. She was about 5 feet tall, about 90 pounds, with whitish gray shoulder-length hair and a copper penny skin tone. Ain't the 1828 Webster Dictionary of American is all of the copper-colored tribes or aboriginals that were discovered by Europeans, but now were applied to European descendants? That's a gem. But this is what I really wanted to show y'all. He says, I relish Mama's home-cooked meals, especially her gumbo and sweet potato pie, another indigenous American crop. The gumbo consisted of crabs, shrimps, oysters, clams, crawdads, chicken, mild and hot links, okra, and gumbo filet. The taste was heavenly, etched forever in my taste buds. Her sweet potato pies were better than any store pies I ever tasted. Powerful. Let's keep walking on. All right, I showed you so far 2 major staples within our community. Now this is a third, barbecue. The term barbecue refers to an outdoor pit or a grill for cooking meat over a fire. The word can also mean the method of cooking or a social gathering where food is cooked in this manner. The Maya, whose civilization arose in 1500 BC in Mesoamerica, and the Aztec, whose empire was established in the same area beginning about 1100 AD, were known to roast meat over an open fire on a framework of greenwood sticks. The Taino of the Caribbean, whom Columbus and his crew encountered, introduced the barbecue to the Europeans. Early engravings by explorers show indigenous people from this area roasting meat on woven flames of greenwood. Now, I already made a whole presentation about this several years ago. If you want to check out the full presentation showing you the actual pictures and images they talking about, along with more, go to my YouTube, subscribe. Smoking Sessions with Chief Pressure is going to be under American Indian Contributions to the World Barbecues. Now it says, although there is no evidence of the indigenous people of the West Indies were cannibals, one of these engravings showed them cooking a human leg, perhaps to make the artist's voyages seem more exciting and to dehumanize the Indian people encountered. We know they still do that today. The Spanish called the open fire cooking method barbacoa, from the from which the English word barbecue is derived, but I showed you a couple ways where it actually came from in my presentation. Barbecues began making their way northward during the early 1600s when runaway bondage servants, shipwrecked sailors, and outcasts from the new colonies began to filter in the sparsely settled areas of Hispaniola, bringing pigs and cattle with them. They learned from the Taino who had survived the diseases brought by the Europeans not only how to cook, but also how to dry meat, making jerky on greenwood frames over fire constructed of animal bones and hides. The Indians called this food preservation technique bucan. When the new residents of Hispaniola, now 80, in the Dominican Republic, began drying their surplus livestock in this manner, the French called them Burkani or Buccaneer. Eventually, the word became buccaneer, meaning pirate. Today, barbecues are not only an important southern cooking, but have become popular summertime pastime for people throughout the United States. Let's keep walking. I showed you three. Let's make it four. Cornbread. Now it says pre-contact, North American Northeast and Southeast cultures. A thick, unleavened corn flatbread was a staple of the diet of Eastern woodland Indians. That's a key term, right? Frequently, this bread was cooked in the embers of a fire. The bread soon became a mainstay in the diet of New England and Southern colonists who called it corn pone or pone. The Iroquois made cornbread from hominy flour, see also cornmeal, mixed with boiling water until it formed a stiff paste. The dough was kneaded, shaped into a ball, and then flattened so that it was about 1.5 inches thick and about 7 inches in diameter. Now it says the Iroquois right there, but I just showed y'all somebody from the Mohawk earlier, right? George Crumb, or aka George Speck. Right, that's another gem. Now, each piece was put in a pot of boiling water with a special bread paddle. When the cakes were cooked, they were removed from the water. Eaten hot or cold, they were sometimes covered with corn syrup because the Indians and later the colonists took these loaves with them. As they traveled, they were called journey cakes. Eventually, colonists modified them to make what were called Johnny cakes as well. Indians living in the southeast taught colonists to make fried cornbread by dropping spoonfuls of cornmeal dough into hot beer fat to make what became known as hush puppies. And right there below it, you see it says cornmeal grits, hominy grits, pre-contact, North American, Northeast, and Southeast, Mesoamerican, and South American cultures. Grinding hard kernels of corn into fine pieces make cornmeal, right? Let's skip down right quick. And let's end this thing off with grits. This is a major staple within our community, especially in the South. I know you heard about these women eating grits and cornbread to get thick. If you know, you know. Now, grits is the generic term applied to a gruel made from coarsely ground corn. In the United States, the word usually means ground hominy corn that has been treated by soaking in a solution of lye in order to soften it and make the amino acids more readily absorbed by the body. The Choctaw or Chata of Mississippi boiled ground hominy and called the resulting gruel tafula. It was made by soaking the corn long enough to loosen the holes and then winnowing the grains in a basket. The winnowing continued until each corn has been broken into 3 or 4 pieces or grits. These were boiled in the water in which wood ashes had been smoked in order to provide the lye to release the amino acids. Porridge made from hominy grits became a staple of Southern colonial diet and remains an important part of the regional cuisine of the American South today. In the American South, cooks also, I think, say make hush puppies from cornmeal or corn flour. All right, family. So I'm gonna wrap this up now. But I appreciate y'all for rocking with me to the end. If you learned anything, put a gem and a feather in a comment. Like this video. Even go to my YouTube and subscribe for me. And watch some of those. And if you want to support even more, hit that Cash App. Peace, love, and power to my people.